To the 10th power. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, was that from his mother?
Okay, welcome to an episode of
Nick found it?
What's New with Pasquale Civitella's YouTube channel. And today we're going to shoot a video on my husband's mentor. And he likens it to Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. His true father being the man that he loved and is beloved and raised him with great character. And he feels that Don Klanko was his rich dad, the man that imparted great business knowledge. He credits him for a lot of things he learned in business, how to be savvy, and how to put food on the table. Yeah. And I'll let you give your true introduction.
Okay.
No crying.
Yeah, this is the infamous Don Klanko. I don't think there's a week that goes by in our house, right? I mean, you could ask the kids and my wife that there's never a time that I mention, like, you know, oh, I remember this at Klankos, and I'm sure they're tired of hearing it, or you know, and a lot of it they think I exaggerated. So that's why I wanted to do this and ask you some of the questions, or either answer them true or false, or, you know, get your take on it. But I think let's go back a little bit, because everybody doesn't know the story. Don was telling Paul before the story about how he got started in the store with his father. Right. And your father was in the bakery business and had a couple other stores before he bought the store where it still stands today, as a matter of fact. But I don't think it's called Klankos anymore.
Wakelee.
They just changed it just recently, in the last 6 months or so. But I wanted to talk about, first of all, that corner. It's called Pork Hollow.
Right, there's a stone right out in front.
Yeah, you want to tell? Yeah, tell everybody. Yeah, tell
the stone out there was put out there by the daughters of the American Revolution, and
it's still there.
The stone has been there longer than the building has, believe it or not, because the stone goes back, and I don't even know the start year, but back in the 1800s, where the store wasn't built to the 1900s. But there is a photograph someplace, I think, at the Ansonia warehouses were empty, and so it got the name Pork Hollow, and it stands today.
Imagine that, Revolutionary War.
Revolutionary War.
And that stone is still there in front of his store there.
Well, the daughters of the American Revolution put the stone to mark that Pork Hollow area, and if you go up that, it could be that very spot right there. Or also, if you go toward now where the Route 8 highway is, up toward Webb Terrace, there's an area in there that was actually a battlefield. And
off of Webb Terrace there?
Oh, actually, it's off of the Westfield Avenue in the cross street, Wesley.
Oh yeah, Wesley. Yeah, yes, that's a dead end over there.
They're developing up in there now. They're putting homes in.
Are they really?
Between Westfield Avenue and Route 8. But that was an old battlefield in there. The kids that would go up to Webb Terrace before Route 8, they used to cut through there to go up there. But you know, during the Revolutionary War, between the battleground and the storage there of the Pork Hollow, you know.
And then that road right now is called Pork Hollow. It's been right.
The street.
The street is called Pork Hollow.
Yes,
for
it is.
Probably going back, I don't know, maybe 50 or more, 70 years.
Yeah, it's an old street.
And I don't know, recently, and I forgot to mention this to Don when I talked to you last time, but my son-in-law for Christmas gave me a piece of the rail that was in Wakelee Avenue when they redid it. Where the trolleys used to go on it.
Yeah, they went from Nolan Field
all the way down to Derby, right?
Yeah, they went down Franklin Street, Leicester Street, and then out Clifton Avenue to Derby. I believe on both sides of the river, for sure on Main Street. But
yeah, I think it went all the way down to Elizabeth to Maine, over to East Derby.
Because the Derby and Ansonia people on a Sunday afternoon, they would walk that route, which was the old trolley bus route.
Right.
And the trolley, that's a history in itself, because the first, I guess, electric trolley was tested in the Ansonia Derby area. If you go down to the Trolley Museum down in
New Haven,
East Haven,
Right.
You can find that information. The very first one that was tried, and the building that still stands today down
Look in the window.
Main Street, Derby, just before Route 8. You knew it as the photography place there.
Life Touch.
Life Touch.
Right.
You knew it as Life Touch. That was the old CR&L garage, and before that, it was the trolley garage.
Really?
That was built for the trolley.
And then they said there used to be a bowling alley and a bus station at one time. Is it a bus station? Do you remember that?
Well, of course, it was the bus garage and everything.
Right.
So I guess it was the station. Also.
Yeah.
And,
a bus terminal or something.
Well, because being the garage, I guess it also was a stop.
Right.
Because it was right next to the railroad station, so it probably also served as a terminal.
Don, let's go back, first of all, to your last name, because I think, what's the matter?
I was going to say, you have to say what year you came to this country and how you met
Oh,
Don.
well, yeah,
Okay.
I wanted to go back to the history, because I think at one time I remember Don talking to, either it was your family members or somebody that Klanko was shortened up the name. Was it a different name?
Well, my father was from the Ukraine,
Right.
and his name was Klanko.
How did you spell that?
And well, they spelled it when they Americanized it, Klanko.
Oh, okay.
So that's
With the C before the K.
yes. And my father and a few of the other members of the family changed that, shortened without the C, so it's Klanko.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought it was a much longer name, and it just got shortened up to the
it was Klanko.
Klansko.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, your father, was he born in this country?
No, my father was born in Europe, over in Ukraine. He
In the
came over
Ukraine.
here. He was in the 7th grade school.
And your
Sort of
mother?
like yourself a little bit.
Yeah, and your mother?
My mother was born in coal mine country out in Pennsylvania.
Really? And what brought her to Connecticut?
Well, her father worked in the coal mines, and his oldest son started to work in the coal mines, and he realized that this is no life. It
Right.
wasn't a great life for me. It was no life for him. And he says, I'm not going to let my family grow up as coal miners. And so he took a trip out to Shelton, Connecticut, where he knew somebody, and the old friends from the old country.
Right.
And he got set up or a place to live in Shelton on name of the street.
Forum?
No.
Downtown?
One the hill.
Oh, in White Hills?
Beardsley?
I'm sorry. Right off of Center Street going south.
Oh, Bridgeport Avenue.
Well, no. Bridgeport
going
Avenue.
south?
Going south up the hill.
Long Hill Avenue?
Long Hill.
Long
Long
Hill.
Hill Avenue. There you go.
Which is
Thank
off of
you.
downtown, yeah.
And they rented a house on Long Hill Avenue. And Long Hill Avenue, that was farms up in that area back then. And they had a mill in Shelton, Blumenthal's mill, where they.
I remember the old timers talking about that.
There
yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
And when you went to a funeral, you either had the Blumenthalers or the rubber company people, because after Blumenthal's came in the rubber company, and they employed probably as many people as Blumenthal's did. They were a big employer. But so like I was saying, so Grandpa come and he was going to have a job, and the kids could work there.
Right.
John already was old enough to be working, the older son. So he goes back home to save up enough money to move the family out, and he got killed in the mines.
Really?
Yeah. So that was a sad part of my mother's life. And but Grandma Hannes is where the family. She gathered up the kids, and they got a stipend from the coal mine for his loss, and she moved the kids to Shelton on her own. Back in them days, there was no welfare. Or
Right.
anything.
Right.
You did what you did for yourself, and your friends helped you. And so the family, those that were old enough at that time, started working in Blumenthal's. And when my mother was old enough, and she was the youngest of them, she had a job in the Blumenthal's.
Right.
And the only thing to add on to that is that the Blumenthal's was unionizing, so they were talking about striking. And so one of my uncles, Uncle Steve, wasn't the oldest one, he says to the oldest one, John, that they all worked in the same place. They go on strike. We have no income.
Right.
So he had a little better job than John did. So he says to John, why don't you go over to Ansonia? I hear the American Brass is hiring. It could have been Farrell.
Right.
I always mix the two of them.
Right. Yeah, I do too.
And John did. And John retired from there. So it was a good move for him. And his younger brother is the one that initiated the move. So that's part of the my mother's family and their history in the valley.
All right, so we're going to go back to when I first met Don. We came to this country in 1969, and we lived on Wakelee Avenue, 210 Wakelee. The store was 192 Wakelee, and then there's Jackson Street in between. Where there's the Klankos, there's Lear Pharmacy, and then there's Jackson Street, and then there was 3 houses, and we lived in the 3rd house there from the store. So it was like from walking here to the 4th or 5th house down the street here. And when we came to this country, my aunt lived in the same house. It was a duplex house. We lived on one side, and she lived on the other. And you know, we started going to the store. I was little. I was 6 years old. I would go with my dad or my cousins because they were a little older. You know, we go in there, get penny candy or whatever the case was. And but you know, I didn't really know Don then because I was 6. He was a man. I didn't know.
3 children.
Right. Yeah. So as time went on, I think I started working in the store. I think it was either 76 or 77, I think I want to say. I was 11 years old, so what would that be? 63 and
Yeah, you started out
70,
just,
yeah, 74.
just helping out with a few little
Yeah,
things.
I would. And, I remember going in there and asking him for a job. I don't remember the exact words.
11?
I was 11
Yes.
years old.
Wow.
And he said, you know, he says, yeah, come in after school. I don't know, it was 2:30, 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock, 2 hours a day. And yeah, I would do all kinds of odd jobs, stocking shelves and sweeping the floors and whatever had to be done in the store. Which
Just don't tell the government.
Uh-oh, it's going to be
Yeah.
on iTunes.
And my children, especially my oldest, was around his same age, and of course my kids all worked in the store.
yeah,
They learned the business, and it seemed to help them as they went on in life. The background they learned in the store.
well, absolutely. Just dealing with people and customers and just dealing with the public, I think it's just a big help for all the young kids. I mean, the experience alone, just dealing with customers, I think.
Well, later on in school and things, when you have to go up in front and do something,
Right.
it was a piece of cake.
Exactly.
You've been in front of the public more than once.
Right.
Being on stage was no different than talking to
Exactly.
the people in the store. You were on stage then.
All the time. Yeah.
You learn customer service.
Yeah, you learn customer service, how to, you know, well, you know, you're there to please the customer. And that was Don's motto, I remember since day one, the customer comes first. Whether, you know, and the customer's always right. You know, even if you think they're wrong, they're still right.
Yes.
Um,
Don't be afraid. You
but
can
there,
talk
you know,
into
there
the
were certain
videos,
things that
okay?
were
Makes it more
embedded in my
interesting.
mind from Don is like, I still remember to this day, I'm going a little bit off track, but I remember like, when he was one of the first guys probably in the whole state of Connecticut that got the lottery machine, if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah.
You were probably the first store to get the lotto machine. And back then that machine was probably like half the size of this table. Right? I'm not exaggerating on that, right? It was half the size of this table. It was a giant metal box. You had to open it.
You know, electronics in the old days, they were big and huge. Today,
Oh, yeah.
Today our telephone can do
But
more
right,
things
yeah, I'm not
than
exaggerating. It was like
your computer.
half the size of this table, and all it had was a roll of paper in there with that printed out the tickets, and there was push button.
The keyboard was only a numbers board.
Right. And then I was going on that story because I wanted to say that Don made a separate line for the lottery customers, and then there was the counter for his regular customers. And you know, he didn't have to tell us, but we knew that we had to take care of the customers first. The lottery customers, they used to line up. I remember lining up all the way to the back of the store because
Especially on drawing night.
on drawing night they'd be at the back of the store and just be waiting in line. But you know, his bread and butter was taking care of his regular customers who were coming in to buy milk, bread, cookies, and
Eggs.
so forth. You know, and I still remember, and it still bugs me to this day when I go into like Cumberland Farms or any of these little stores, and you know they're all in the regular line, and the lady's in front of me. She wants this ticket, that scratch ticket, and I'm here waiting.
Like, what number is that ticket?
I want, you know, she's spending $50, but they don't realize you're only making a nickel on a dollar.
Yeah.
And
They don't
anybody
care.
anybody
They just
worked in
wanna
my
win.
store was also a cashier.
Right.
So when we get busy, someone would come off the floor or whatever. they were
Exactly. Everybody would always take, you know, the customer, never made the customer wait.
doing. 'Cause we wouldn't be able to stock shelves. We didn't have the customer, so you had to take care of the customer.
Exactly. So that
So
was
they
good.
wouldn't sit there and wait. Now
Right.
the line, a lot of that was people seemed to love to come in the night of the drawing.
Right,
They
right
get in
before the
line
drawing.
to buy. I mean, they could have bought the ticket earlier in the week
Because that was a once a week drawing when it first came out.
right.
But they would wait till the night of the drawing, and then the line be all the way to the back of the store.
So they can chit chat in line what they were going to do with the big winnings when they won. Just
It's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
Now also, we're sitting here. I don't know who's on camera, but we have
You
a
never
friend of
know.
mine, Joyce.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Stottinger
Yes, I keep bringing
from,
her in. Yes.
Southbury, Connecticut,
Yep.
and she used to run a farm in Sandy Hook with her husband,
Yep.
and we have our neighbor Paul, neighbor here.
You're such a natural, Don.
We're
Police
gonna zoom in on
Commissioner of
everybody.
Waterbury,
Yeah,
Parking Authority, Alderman.
Look what I have.
We're here, compliments of Mr. Cicchetti. We're at the beach, his beach house. Great backdrop.
I'm gonna use it tomorrow. I'm so happy.
Just a little picture of our backdrop.
All right, now we're going to get back to the interview.
Yes, but it's nice to have a moment.
So that was one of the things, like I said, that Don had trained all of us, that, you know, the customers come first, and like he says, everybody knew how to work the cash register because you didn't want the customer waiting. But one of the things I remember vividly, Don, is, and I tell my kids this all the time, is when we had snowstorms, that with the whole store would get wiped out. Bread, milk, chips, the whole story was like we would just get.
It hasn't changed either.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, it was like, I know Don enjoyed it because we used to sell everything, and we and we used to have to stock up, you know, all the time. But you know, we used to get storms, and we used to get 2, 3, 4 feet of snow, and it was like no big deal. We'd be outside shoveling and clearing the snow and just getting ready for the next day.
But Vic DiBenedetto today started his whole comedy routine
But
on
nowadays,
bread
you
and milk.
get a half inch of snow, they cancel school, and the whole world comes to that.
School, for crying out loud.
But let's go back. I want to go back to some of the highlights, not highlights, but some of the people I remember. I want to go back to the milkman, and I want to say that
He held up the walkie-talkies. Yes.
the milkman, which was Newt's and Dairy at the time that I remember, was Joe. Remember Joe, the milkman?
sure.
You remember his last name? Because I think he was from Waterbury too.
I don't know. He used to fight under the name of Kid Candle.
Yeah. Here we go. Paul, did you hear this? The milkman was Joe, and he used to be a heavy. Was he heavyweight or lightweight? Or
Yes.
I know he was an ex-champion boxer, and he worked for Newt's and Dairy. And now Don can say if I'm exaggerating or not, but this guy was probably, I would say, 5'8", maybe 5'9".
That's why I don't think he was a heavyweight.
Yeah, he was probably, but he was 5'8", 5'9", and at the time when I was a kid, he looked like, I don't know, maybe 60 years old. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I would think so.
Right.
Late 50s.
But he was built. This guy was built lean. I mean, he would grab without. No, Don, you can ask Don if I'm exact. He would grab 2 cases of in each hand. They were 8 gallons of milk in each hand.
Wow.
Unload the truck like that. Right? Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, he was strong.
This guy, two cases, Paul, 1 in each hand, 8 gallons. And this guy was 60 years old without his.
He had a hand truck.
Oh yeah, no, but a lot of times he would just grab it with his hand. He had hands on him that were just unbelievable, and that's just like I never forgot that. And he was such a great guy, and I think he was from Waterbury, but I don't remember.
West Haven.
Oh, West Haven, okay. and it was Newts and Dairy, and he used to come 3 times a week, right, Don? He used to get milk delivered?
Yeah.
Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Fridays was our biggest day, biggest delivery because of the weekend. And I mean, how big was the store? Like 1,000 square feet, maybe? 1,200?
Well, the front was like 19 feet,
Yeah, overall.
and they went back.
So 20 feet by, let's say, 40, 50?
Yeah.
So
Pretty
about
small
1,000,
store.
about 1,000 square feet.
But I'll tell you what, we pushed a lot of groceries. through
That's
that
exactly my point. So we used to get just in milk deliveries, 3 milk deliveries a week, and on an
Bread
average,
deliveries was every day except
Yeah.
Sunday.
on an average, the milk delivery was what, 20, 30 cases every 3 days, every couple days.
It was a lot of milk.
A lot of milk. I mean, because Don used to sell milk, relatively, I guess, probably the cheapest one in the valley, because that was his like lost leader, milk, bread, eggs, and a couple of probably chips and stuff. And he was a big believer in advertising before anybody ever advertised.
The
He was-
signs. You always
he
talk
was
about
in the
painting
evening-
the
yeah, he
signs.
was-
They used to run
Ads
ads.
in the Evening Sun every week, and then we used to make signs for the window
How'd
every
you
week.
paint the signs?
And Don used to do the signs by hand. I remember we used to, because he had like, the store was downstairs, but there was 2 floors above it. That was our warehouse or stock room, with mostly all paper goods and diapers. And up there he had a little room that you would make your signs and for the windows, and he would do them all by hand. And I used to watch him, and he taught. And then eventually I would, was making some of the signs myself.
Originally, I think I used to make them with
The spray paint.
foam letters. And
Yeah,
spray
right,
paint.
right. He had these
So
foam letters you
you'd
lay
lay
down,
out the letters,
and he used to
and you'd
spray
the
them.
paper.
It'd come out the reverse.
And no paint would go where the letters were, so that was the sign.
Yeah.
But you did have a grocer a mile up the road, but people still preferred the small grocer. You had Warehouse Foods, which was
They were Stop and Save, or where I don't know. Yeah, probably Stop and Save at the time.
Well,
Kings.
They Stop and Save was one of the names, and then business, then they'd
Change it, rebrand it.
try a new name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going past Newts and Dairy, that was the guy. We already talked about a little with Brass City Sales from Waterbury, which Paul and Debbie are familiar with. And
Not on this interview, but you and I talked personally before that.
right.
Paul
Or did-
remembers Brass City, right?
Brass
Paul,
City
where?
Sales.
What
John
street?
DiAugustino,
Yeah, what street?
West Clay Street,
Yes. And what were they known for?
toys
Yeah.
and
Trinkets.
Yeah.
but you could bring them into a store, a small store like that, make a display, and you could push the stuff, and the guy would come around. I don't know how often he came to your store, but he was known for bringing his supply. A lot of people got it on credit, but he was a good businessman.
Yeah.
He was honest, and he had stuff that you wanted to sell, people wanted to buy. Trinkets
Yeah.
for their kids.
Is that what I said the guy remembered about your store from Southbury? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he goes, oh, they had the greatest toys.
Yeah, he would probably come 2 or 3 times a year. I remember coming to the store.
Agostino.
Before the summertime, Don used to buy like the squirt guns and frisbees and wiffle balls and cap guns. Yeah, that was a big thing too. All that stuff.
Well, we had a lot of different suppliers back then.
Right.
Because down in Derby there was the Santos, and they carried all of the similar things.
Right.
And I used to have a job racker. He used to come in with a spin-around rack with all toys hanging
Yeah, he
on
used to fill that rack.
And I don't know if John ran that or who, but they would service that almost on a weekly basis. And I was close to Route 8, so sometime they'd be just going by and they'd come in and check
Cheap, but
and refill the rack.
Yeah. Also, what Don or Klankos was known for was the 99-cent foot sub sandwiches, which I tell my son and my kids. He was probably one of the first ones in the valley who we would make sandwiches. And, they were foot-longs, ham, cheese, salami, a lettuce, tomato. And I don't know how many we made. I don't know, was it 40, 50, 100? I used to exaggerate. I used to tell them 1,000 every day.
No, we did thousands, but
We probably did at least
we did a lot of sandwiches.
a lot of sandwiches. And he was the first one. We make them all in the morning and just start stacking them on the counter. By 11 noontime, they were all gone.
a little plug for Wakelee Market that's there today.
Yeah.
They're making sandwiches. They're using the same rolls, the same company, the baker, for rolls that we did when we were in the store.
Really? Oh, the same. Really?
The same.
The foot long ones?
Yeah, the same company for the subs and the rolls that the Kaiser rolls.
Right. Oh, those Kaiser rolls, they were the best.
We called hard rolls.
Yeah.
Which confused the people that didn't know what a Kaiser
Roll was,
hard
yeah.
roll. They thought it was stale, but it was just a nickname that
Right.
apparently
Hard rolls.
wasn't all over, and it was sort of a valley thing.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, my first trip was down to Miami with the Connecticut Hurricanes, and I went in the store and asked for a hard roll. They gave me a stale roll. Because I wasn't smart enough to ask for a Kaiser roll,
Right.
which the rest of the nation called the
Kaiser roll.
So showing my ignorance in the business.
Yeah, going back to so many suppliers that we had at the store, that Don had at the store. One of them was the infamous Art Maybeck.
Oh, yeah.
The Eggman.
Man from Shelton.
And the eggs don't have to be
It's this right
refrigerated.
here.
They're not as cold as other food, apparently. Because his refrigerator was an air conditioner.
Who, Art Maybeck?
Art Maybeck, yeah.
Really?
It was an air conditioner. And I don't know today, because things change.
Right.
But back then, eggs had to be kept cool, not cold.
Right.
And of course, you couldn't freeze an egg because then you ruined it. The shell would crack. But so, like I said, especially during the winter months and not summer,
Right.
on the floor worked fine.
Yeah, so we used to stack 5 cases of eggs and sell them right off the floor. People today say, "Oh, you can't
No
do
E.
that.
coli.
You get sick, you get this, you get that." So we dispelled that myth that we're still all alive. We ate all those eggs.
Oh yeah. Well, I was in the Navy, and the government, I don't know if they still do it today, but they used to buy eggs to help support the price. And so they had
Keep
these things
the price up, right?
to keep the price up.
For the farmers. Yeah.
For the farmers, yeah. So they had these big coolers out Wisconsin way and stuff with just, cases and cases of eggs. And they finally said, well, we got to do something with it. They started serving it to the military. I was in the Navy, so we used to get eggs from these cold storage places, and we had eggs every day of the week, along with the menu that we would normally have.
Right.
The SOS and the typical Navy food,
Potatoes.
Spam.
But I'm saying the Navy ate good. I don't remember eating any spam in the Navy. Although some Sunday nights we would have cold cut night, and the cook always said that was the most expensive meal he served, where we would consider it probably the cheapest, but he claimed it was the most expensive. And but the rest of the time, I mean, we had breakfast was a full breakfast. You had coffee and you had toast, and you would have eggs, you'd have oatmeal, you'd have other cereals, and then the Navy stuff. You'd have the beans. That's what we used to call the SOS. And then they'd do the chipped beef with the white gravy. We had another name for that. I can't mention it. But then when we started doing eggs, so we had eggs to order along with the other items that we would have, which made you eat pretty good. And then for lunch, we didn't have lunch in the Navy. We had a dinner for lunch, and we had a dinner for supper.
For supper.
We ate good. And the best bread on the ship was when you went out to sea, and they didn't have the American bread they bought ashore, and they had to bake their own, and we had the bread
Fresh
baked
bread.
right on the ship.
Nice.
Fresh,
The
which was
smell
fantastic.
permeates. Yeah, beautiful.
But getting back to the store.
Yeah, back to the store.
it's okay.
Another vendor was, which this always sticks in my mind too, was the once a week cigarette delivery.
Danny Sparazzini.
No,
Oh.
you're getting ahead of the game. That's the
Okay.
cigar guy. That was Danny's father. Anyways, the cigarette guy, I remember the 2 cigarette guys down there used to come from New Haven. At the time they looked like they were 7 feet tall and 3 feet.
Tony especially.
Yeah,
And his partner.
Yeah, 3 feet wide. But the funniest thing to me was they used to bring in like 6 or 7 cases. but they always had that midget hand truck. It was like, right? It was like half the size of them, and
Yeah, it looked like a toy.
it looked like a toy. It would crack me up. But again, Don would sell cigarettes at the lowest price. He would probably, I don't know, we used to get a delivery once a week, right?
Well, they delivered once a week and I picked up once a week.
Right, so twice a week. I don't know how many cartons that was. And that's up to you if you want to mention how many cartons of cigarettes you used to sell every week.
We're selling 500 cartons a week out of that store.
500 cartons. This is just the cigarettes.
Are those people still living?
Well, that's
Yeah,
just
they're all
in
still alive.
that's just in cartons.
Right, well, I'm just talking about just the
Yeah,
cigarettes.
not loose boxes.
So
yeah.
from
Not packs, cartons.
right,
There's cartons.
right.
10 packs.
Yes.
So it's 500 times 10 for a pack.
And then again, then we go into the. He had a section that was like the size of this table that was a nice display case that had all the cigars in there.
Yeah.
And that was Danny's father. I don't remember Danny's father's name off the top of my head right now. He was the older gentleman with the white hair. Right.
He wasn't also Danny?
He might have been, was he?
I think
Was he? He was a
Danny.
Danny too, senior.
Yeah,
Okay.
Pretty sure.
So again, we sold tons of cigars out of that store.
And then Danny's son became a representative.
Right, for the cigarette, for Philip Morris, right.
Yeah.
But I don't know, how many cigars, how much cigars did you go through there at the store? Once a week delivery?
Yeah.
Once a
Pretty
week?
much once a
Were they
week.
ever more?
Well, we used Dan Sparancini worked for New Haven Tobacco.
New Haven Tobacco
And
down
we got cigars from him once a week, but we also got cigars locally from Santos
Right.
and well, there was another cigar company that we did business with, but not in that store. It was in a previous store. We used to have a cigar company in Ansonia, right up by where the Ansonia Library is.
Oh, really?
Cottage. There was Martinez.
I didn't know that.
Made cigars and sold them, right? You know, I don't know how far out he sold them, but
Right.
as a kid, I'd go up there and get cigars and bring them down to my father's store for him.
On Cottage.
The Cottage Avenue was
Cottage
the street,
Avenue, yeah.
and he had a little, like a garage. They'd probably call it a barn or whatever, where he had his place set up for making the
Oh,
cigars.
it's so interesting.
Going back to the cigarette guys, what were their names? What was the big guys that brought the cigarettes?
I don't remember the friend that used to come, but Tony
What was his last name? Do you remember?
Esposito,
What was the name of the business? Or what?
A&M, all mine.
A&M, all mine. A&M cigarettes.
But Tony didn't own the company. Tony only worked for him. That was
Is that what it really stood for, though? A&M?
Anthony.
Michael or something?
Anthony, and his last name was.
Was it
Montana?
Montana?
No, he sold his business to Montana.
Montana, yeah.
They're building a house over here on this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
The daughter is.
The daughter
Oh, the
is,
daughter,
yeah.
yeah. He had a couple of daughters working for him. They used to have Montanos used to have a speedboat, cigarette.
They had a Paul, you're familiar with that? The speedboat, the cigarette boat?
That the Montanas
That's
had?
her father.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge boat.
And the name of
It's an offshore boat.
offshore racing.
Yeah.
It used to be called the Prime. And so he sold a cigarette, Prime.
I didn't know that.
The tobacco companies made
All I knew
for
was
him
he had
with-
millions
with
of
his-
dollars and he used to race that big boat.
He
They
had,
used to park it downtown in the center of Milford so that everybody could see it.
yeah,
And it said Montana on the side.
yeah,
He was racing it offshore
yeah,
on TV,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
big time. It was not a joke.
Oh, it was for real.
All right, so that was A&M out of New Haven. Those were the big guys there. But I still can't get over that little midget hand truck. Because these guys, like when I was a kid, they looked like giants. They looked like Andre the Giant to me, these guys.
Tony, not Tony.
Big Tony.
Tony's boss, which was also an Anthony.
Yeah.
He was very frugal.
I guess he didn't want to go for a new hand truck.
I guess not.
All right, so we're going to
This
move.
one worked. Quite a place.
We had the produce man. We talked about that a little bit before. We had Mike Akinfora,
Like them for
out of Derby. He used to deliver the produce to the store.
in the white van.
Yeah. Now this guy was a character. Like we were talking before, I think he ran the produce just to have some kind of legitimate business, but I think he was a bookie for the majority of his life. But the funniest thing is, what always stuck in my mind was, he used to come in, like we order a case of this, a case of that. He would bring it all in. He would get a piece of scrap paper, wherever he found on the floor or whatever, and he would write all the numbers down. Then he would say, okay, it's $32 you owe me. And he just write it on a piece of scrap paper. We would have to take that scrap paper, pay him, and put it in the drawer, put, Mike the produce man. So, right? Am I right?
Well, the lumber yard was the same way, Ciccarelli.
Yeah. But Mike was infamous. He would always have a piece of paper and a pencil, and then no calculator. Boom, 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 $47.50.
I got a question for you. Who was delivering Italian bread when you worked there?
We used to have, I don't remember who used to deliver, but we used to have the white bag with the green Marca John, I think it was called, right?
Okay.
But I don't remember who used to deliver that.
The
Marca John bread.
that came out in the Haven. Yeah.
Right?
But yeah, okay. Because before him, there was a local guy, Esposito, that had a bakery. Originally had a bakery in town, and when he retired, he still delivered bread, but he bought his bread from the Marca John Bakery.
Yeah.
And so he was bringing in. His name was also Esposito.
Right.
And he also had the sideline business. That's why
he did?
That's why he delivered the bread after he retired.
We'll stick with that word, sideline.
It was a sideline business.
It's not
the main
impugn
business was
Let's
numbers.
not impugn anybody.
Hey, the Ansonia was quite a town. Walter Winchell had a radio program, news he did out of New York, and he one time referred to Ansonia as Little Chicago.
He did.
And well, because of all the illegal activities
Activities going on.
Now, right around the corner from where I lived, and my grandparents actually lived next door, there was a gentleman there that was in the bootleg business.
We're on Holbrook Street?
On Franklin.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And one of the fellows that worked for him was also a customer in my store, and he filled me in with some of the details of the business, the trucks that used to come in and out of his garages at night.
Ask Mr. Klanko if he knew my grandfather, the barber.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Yeah.
My wife's maiden name is Ferrillo. He had a barber shop there on Meadow Street. Grove Street.
Grove Street.
On the corner of Grove and where the high school is there.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you remember him. He had a barber shop there for years.
Yeah, but after he went out, they run a little convenience store.
Yes, there was a little store there. Yeah.
Mrs. Hunt. Did you know Mrs. Hunt from school, the cafeteria?
Probably.
She owned that for a while.
Yeah.
As a little store.
Yeah, they opened up a little store after they closed up the barber shop.
But he used to come into, we used to walk to Klankos from Meadow Street. Yeah. I used to go with my grandfather.
Well, there used to be a customer that used to come in the store, but I don't want to say who it was.
Well, you could say my grandfather used to come in the store and drink the...
Somebody used to come in and drink the vanilla extract and put it back on the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my grandfather.
That was pure. That was right. That's another story that I'm not exaggerating, right?
Oh my God.
I swear to God, because
they leave us the empty.
They leave the empty. No, because every night we would have to clean the store and face and straighten. I go up there and I push the stuff on and it feels empty. I say, what the hell's going on here? Sure enough, the bottle was empty. They put it back in the box, put it back on the shelf.
Oh, that shit's good.
Well, that was, what was it, pure alcohol, wasn't it? It was
Just about, yeah.
Yeah.
That's alcohol. I know
Yeah,
alcohol.
almost all the extracts.
All the
I know that
extracts.
was the one that seemed to be the popular one for people to drink.
About me, please.
Do you have any vanilla?
Matter of fact, there was another barber shop around the corner on Crescent
Check your
Street.
bottle.
And the previous owner of Klankos, he was getting a haircut in there when he passed.
Really?
Yeah,
Vanilla?
on that barber shop.
A lot of things happen in the barber shops.
Yeah.
That was your dad?
Oh, no.
Oh.
Previous owner.
Oh, really?
Same age.
All right, now
What
we're
about
gonna-
the beer? You were
well,
excited about the
first,
beer.
Yeah. First of all, I want to go back. I want to go to the Wakelee delivery from Bazzuto's. So the Bazzuto, the truck would come. It was, big 18-wheeler, and Don would get a delivery once a week.
Bazzuto's is from...
Cheshire. And Waterbury. Not any longer.
And that stuff didn't fit in the store either.
So, and I tell this story, which I do exaggerate a little bit. But I always used to say at the beginning of the summer season, you used to get a whole tractor trailer load of charcoal, and again, it wouldn't fit in the store, so I had to bring it upstairs, 3 flights of stairs, But I'm sure it wasn't a whole tractor trailer, but close to it, was it?
It was a lot.
It was
a lot of charcoal.
But he used to get, without exaggerating, probably a quarter of the tractor trailer all charcoal from top to bottom. I don't know how many bags it was, but it was
Well,
quite a few.
predates gas grills.
Well, it would take me almost like 3 days to bring it all upstairs. That's how much charcoal
Do
it
you
was.
remember the cart we used to have for the charcoal?
Yes,
We'd
the
roll in and
U-boat.
out?
Yeah, the U-boat.
The U-boat.
U-boat.
I have a
We used-
photo of that somewhere.
Oh my
We used to
Because
fill
I ran
that.
into it with Peter the other
We
day.
used to fill that thing at nighttime. We would bring it into the store. Then every morning we'd bring it out, for sale.
Was it bags of charcoal?
Yeah, it was like
Oh.
10-pound bags
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
20-pound bags. I think there was two different sizes.
Yeah?
And that was just that was just one item. But he would get a delivery every week from Bazzuto's, and then he would always load up on paper towels and diapers. That was another item that we sold tons of. And that again used to have to go upstairs to the second and third floor because we didn't have the
And
room in the store.
The delivery was dumped on the sidewalk.
Yeah, so they would come with the tractor trailer. Everything get dumped in front of the store.
It didn't fit in the store. We had to take it out and put it on the shelf individually.
Yeah.
We didn't have room for all those cases.
So that day, which was, I think it was always a Wednesday or Thursday for some reason, I
Yeah,
remember it.
middle of the week.
And we would have to stock the shelf and then everything, we had to get everything on the shelf and then everything else upstairs or wherever there was room, And again, that was every week.
That shows how smart he was because he bought in bulk.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely, absolutely.
Cheaper.
Yeah, he would buy whatever there was a deal on with the diapers, paper goods, because,
Yep.
they don't go bad. And,
No.
he used to sell them at probably one of the lowest prices in the valley. And I remember going through, I don't know how many diapers we used to sell.
We didn't go through that inventory because we were charging too much, I'll say.
Right, exactly. And then going, when you walked into the store, again, it was a small store, only 1,000 square feet. As soon as you walked in, we always had a giant, Don always would make a giant display of sodas for sale, whether that week was it 7-Up or Diet Right or Coca-Cola, whatever the soda man had a deal on.
Shasta, remember
Shasta,
Shasta?
yeah, we had Shasta. Whatever the soda mans had the deal, that's...
Were you there when I had the Shasta display? We had a bullet hole through the cans.
No, I don't think I remember that. RC Cola, I remember
I
the
come in the store. This is after I closed up for the night, but I came back in and there's soda on the floor.
Spilled?
Oh, somebody shot through the door?
Someone had, so I see the can has a bullet hole.
Oh my goodness.
Good
And I
thing you were
says,
cool.
how could somebody shoot us in the store? The store's locked. When we had gone home, but I don't know, and if I ever went anywhere before I went home, I went to the store to either check something
Check
or
it,
do
yeah.
something. And here, so now there's the hole. There's all glass doors, and I'm looking for the hole where the bullet came in. And it took quite some time. We had a solid wood door. And
And
the
it
bullet
went through the wood?
went through the solid wood
I
door.
remember that door,
And
yeah,
it
because
still
you had the wood on the side all the way around.
It still had enough power to go into because it's just aluminum cans.
And where did the shot come from?
Outside.
Somebody going
Well, you don't know who it was?
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh, you do? Was it one of the neighbors?
Yeah, Jackson Street.
Upper
I'll tell you,
or lower Jackson Street?
Tell him off camera.
Below Wakelee Avenue, but above Howard Avenue.
Okay, so again, that was just in soda alone. I remember at the end of the day, the soda guys always used to come to the store because they wanted to unload whatever they didn't sell for the day, right? Whatever they didn't sell, they would come and see Don because they wanted to make a deal. And whether it was 7-Up, RC, I remember those guys, like yesterday, they used to come all the time. And Don used to make a deal, I'll take the rest of the truck, but it's 25 cents a half gallon, or right, it was a half gallon at the time. Or
Yeah,
Right,
well,
it wasn't-
they,
but-
whatever package they had
whatever
to be
package the
overstocked
deal.
on.
Yeah, there's 6-pack sodas, whatever it was. And again, he would buy the whole truck, and we'd have to bring it all in the back. We had to find room for it. I mean, we had everything stacked to the ceilings in the back. But the amount of stuff that was sold through that store, it would just
If you go
It'd
in,
be-
see
it'd be
how
my-
small it
yeah,
is.
Per square market,
Per
we
square-
did more business than the supermarket.
I think you did
Yes.
more business than
I
school
love
letters
that.
per-
I
per
love
square
that.
feet, per
Yeah.
square foot.
Yeah.
And then walking around the store, I remember we also had the potato chip section there.
Yeah.
Again, that was another item that, I don't know, they used to come at least 2-3 times, probably 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Same as the milk and the bread guys. I don't remember the chip guy though for some reason. I remember his face, but I can't remember his name. It was an older.
Through the years, we had several different.
Yeah. But when I was there, I think it was an older gentleman.
What is that, Frito-Lay or what
Yeah,
is
but
that?
it was Lay's potato. I think it was Lay's potato
Lay's,
chips and
yeah.
all that. But again,
But we had early on we had Schuler's and Wise potato chips.
Wise,
and-
yeah.
But then later on, it became pretty much all
all
Frito.
Frito-Lay,
Frito-Lay,
yeah.
yeah. Wachusett.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
name it. You know, we had the chip.
And then we're
And the Wise potato chip customer, they love their Wise. And if you didn't like Wise. They would just sort of singe the edges of the chip. And,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
only certain people because they
Like
were a
that,
well done
yeah.
chip.
People are
they are a little
loyal.
on the greasy
People
side.
are
you're right,
loyal
though.
to
They
chips,
are.
though.
Yeah.
They're brand loyal.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
very brand loyal.
People back then they were store loyal. They were
Mhm.
brand loyal.
Yes.
And matter of fact, I was in the business. My father was in the business, so I was in. I knew people that didn't know how to read, and back then the companies wouldn't dare change their label because people
Wanted that
recognized it as
recognition.
a picture.
Yeah, that's branding
Yes.
early on. Yeah.
Right. The label was they didn't know the name. They knew
Right.
the picture.
They knew the
Like
picture.
Hellman's mayonnaise, right? That would be like
Yeah.
an example.
Well, any
Yeah.
Any
brand.
brand.
Yeah.
Any brand.
Yeah.
They were afraid to change
Change
the
it.
label because someone wouldn't recognize it.
Yeah.
And one old-time guy, he would refer to carnation milk that has the 3 carnations on it
Yep.
as 3 roses of milk because he was a
Aw.
4 roses customer in the package store. That's how we recognized.
That's how you recognize the milk.
That's how we recognized the can by the picture. If they took that picture off, he wouldn't know the product.
Oh, what a good story.
Working our way back to the store, to the back side of the store where the walk-in cooler was also our beer section. That was another item that Don used to, we used to sell a lot of beer. And I was writing some of the labels down that we used to sell, like the Schlitz beer, Peels, Black Label, Schaefer. And we used to sell them as 6-pack, I remember 99 cents, right?
Schmitz.
Oh, well,
The cans we used to sell all the time, 99 cents a 6-pack.
well, things were cheaper, or the dollar had more
Buying
to
power,
it,
yeah.
And that's what people don't understand today because
Right.
they want to do things to inflate the dollar.
Right.
But getting back to the
beer?
the beer, well, what you left out, of course, was the Budweiser that everybody else would know about, right?
Right.
And then the later Coors came
Coors,
in,
yeah.
and
Heineken.
And the
yeah,
light beers.
and then of course then people start drinking Corona beer, the imports, and
Yeah. Michelob
Heineken,
and
yeah.
Michelob Light.
but we used, the state had a minimum price that you can sell alcohol.
Right, you couldn't sell it anymore. Same thing with the
And-
cigarettes,
and
right?
the same, and we were always at the minimum.
Yeah. State minimum.
And anytime a beer company run a promotion, we would go with the promotion price, which was actually below the minimum, but
Oh, yes.
the company would set that, and the state would recognize it as that's a special. And during that period, you can sell it at that price.
Yeah.
So
So,
we
What,
moved a lot
before-
of beer too.
Before,
Paul, tons of beer.
Paul, you owned a bar. What were the beers in the old days?
Wow. My brother and I used to do just what he's saying. We would buy the whole truck. Our bar sold a lot of Ballantine ale. Right at the bar, 75 cents. So
Are you talking about kegs now or bottles?
bottles. So they would come in, we'd buy the whole truck. Maybe 600-700 cases. We'd buy it because we were getting $1 off
A case.
case. So we were making another $700
From
on
the-
that
yeah.
truck. But we were just a little mom and pop store,
What was the name of the bar?
Cicchetti's
And
Cafe,
where was it?
and 22 North Leonard Street, Brooklyn, Waterbury, Connecticut. And So we would wait for we called them post off. We sold bottles of beer for 75 cents, so we did okay. Other times Budweiser would post off, and we'd buy the whole truck of Budweiser, 700 cases. We'd make another buck off every case that we sold. For a little bar, when you're making a nickel or 10 cents a bottle, to make an extra buck on every case,
That was a big deal.
Big time.
it was a big deal for two little guys. It was a little tiny bar, and we used to do that on post office. And I'm sure you bought post office too, and you saved a buck a bottle, a buck a case, and you bought a whole bunch of it, right?
Well, technically, at the end of the month, you couldn't charge that low price no more, so you had to make the extra profit when you sold it after the period was done.
Yeah.
When it ran out.
Yeah,
The post office was usually only ran a month.
exactly. But we had 30 days to pay.
Hmm.
But my brother and I, we ran a good business. We paid. My brother bartended. I come in after school, and whenever the bill came, they would drop that truckload off. I'd pay for it that day, and the salesman would come in 2, 3, 4 days after and pick up the check. And when we were there, we did that with everything, with liquor or beer. And they told the liquor guy told us, "You guys pay all the time. If you want to screw us for $50,000 or more, don't pay for a couple months. By the time we catch up with you, you won't have to pay anything. You'll be out of business and gone." But we never did that. We never did that. We were good guys, honest to God.
Honest guys.
No, we were.
Yeah.
It was a little tiny place, but we worked on nickels and dimes, and there it is, right there.
Yeah.
Nickels and dimes. That house.
So working our way back to the store, that was the beer section, and then we had the walk-in coolers, which was all the milk and the dairy products. Then against that back wall was our frozen food department. That was another thing that we had, which again,
A little place I think you had frozen.
we had a frozen food wall, probably the size of this whole back section here.
Two
Two coolers, all frozen
Like what?
foods. The Swanson dinners, right? Hungry Man dinners,
French fries,
pierogies,
MTV dinners.
Really?
yeah. The frozen orange juice. We used to sell a lot of that frozen
Oh,
orange
Oh, the
juice.
can, the
Tropicana,
can.
little can.
Yeah, everybody
All the
bought that, the
different cans of
Tropicana.
stuff.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, I used to
The
sell
pitcher
all
of
that.
water.
Back then.
And then in the front of that, there was our bread section, which was again, that would be the frozen foods. Then you step before, this would be our bread department. Again, we had a beautiful selection, all bread, and used to sell a ton of bread.
Yeah, you go into a small store today, if they got 10 loaves of bread, they got.
Oh, we used to have probably 40 or 50, we used to have Sunbeam, Wonder Bread, Italian bread,
Sunbeam, made in Waterbury, Connecticut.
yeah. That was
That's
done.
where I was going. The sort of don't fit the, what do you call it? But
That's
the,
okay.
The bakery for Sunbeam, the DeMaros and Derby built the ovens
Oh, really? For Sunbeam.
for Sunbeam up in Waterbury on East Main Street.
You're right.
Yeah, Robert DeMauro from
Yeah.
Absolutely
Ansonia
right.
Derby. They built
My friends worked there.
They built the brick ovens.
So then you walked around, so that this side of the store on the right hand in the back section, the back section, you
There you
going?
go, yeah.
Okay.
See you, Paul. Yep.
Good meeting
Bye,
you.
nice meeting you.
You too.
Yep. All right, bye.
Okay,
See you later.
yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
Nice meeting you. Now you don't have to get up.
Hey,
Take care, all right?
gotta get up and stretch it.
Take a little breather. See you later, Paul.
Give the baby a kiss.
Yeah, I will.
We miss her. We'll be home tomorrow.
Come and see us whenever.
I will.
Yeah.
We were talking about that.
Say hi to Nikki.
How long
too.
you were gonna
Yeah.
be here. Tonight's your last night?
Tonight's our last night, yeah. It's the end of the 3 weeks. So going back to the store, this section over here, this wall here was our bottom shelf was cat and dog food.
Oh, geez.
Our detergents, all of the detergents, right? All of
Yeah.
soaps, detergent. And this is one thing that the kids never believe me too is, remember we used to sell that brown soap?
Yes.
And that was good for poison ivy,
ivy.
Poison
Yes.
ivy.
right?
It's the old laundry soap.
It was an old, yeah, it was just called,
Oxidol?
No,
No, it was
it's
called
brown.
Octagon.
You rub it up.
Octagon, yeah, Octagon.
And
You rub that on your poison ivy in it.
And another label too.
Yeah, there was another label that was named for that. But then we had all the
Lava?
bleaches.
Borax.
Lava soap. That was
Borax,
another
we had,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
we had
That was
that.
for the hand
Yeah.
the scrub.
For the
So, I mean,
scrubber.
these are all the different departments he had in this store. Laundry, pets,
Back in the day, the brown soap was the woman's pre-wash. You know how today you spray it with
Yeah.
get
Yeah,
the
with
stains
the-
out? They would rub that brown soap into the
What do they
stain
call that, brown?
and then throw it
Lava.
in the one.
no,
Lava, yes.
no, it was
The
called
lava
something.
soap,
it was
lava
called
soap was a
something
hand
else.
soap.
Borax?
Just a hand soap for it. It was gritty.
You remember what it was called? What the name of it was? I can't remember.
Naphtha, or
Na-
something like that.
What?
Yeah, it was
The
just
soap?
it was just like a plain label.
Yeah.
But so that was the back section of that store, and then from there you came, walked around, and you were going to the front of the store, and then you had our deli section. You had the deli section, which was
How
probably
many
about.
square feet was
It was only like 1,000 square feet.
Skinny.
It was long and
Yeah.
narrow, you know, and a little bit wider in the
How
back.
did you fit all this stuff?
Oh, it was just amazing. We had the deli section over here.
Brilliantly
Yeah, brilliantly
styled.
laid out. Across from the deli was our cookie department, all cookies. That was another thing, Nabisco, right? We used to get
Yeah.
that delivery probably once a week, maybe.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
All Nabisco
deliveries.
cookies,
Where did all the people come from?
all the neighborhood. I
Well,
used to,
Was it a big neighborhood?
oh, it was huge, yeah.
well,
It was-
As I'm saying, who's
well,
coming in here
it-
buying all this food?
Well,
Oh.
likewise, you have to keep in mind that down the street was the Griffin Hospital.
right.
So you had a lot of people traveling to the hospital, which would go right by the store.
Yeah.
And people from the other side of town came over to
We'll
me.
come over.
I had a lot of
Why?
customers. Because of the way
It's
we served them, and
Yeah.
they like coming.
And also, like I said, he always had a special on bread, milk, eggs, the staple items.
And he advertised.
Diapers.
Yeah, diapers, milk, bread. I remember guys. Remember the Olszewski brothers? One of the Olszewski brothers, big tall guy, the family that played the football.
Football, yeah.
I remember he used to come in. He used to get 4 gallons of milk like every night because I don't know, 2 or 3 kids. They used to go through milk like crazy over there. But we had a lot of neighborhood people that used to come in there every day. You know, every day buying stuff. And then again, like he was the first guy with the lottery, so that brought in more people.
And when they come in, they see
Yeah,
other
you-
things they want, and they
Yeah.
pick this up or
Yeah,
that
we
up.
we would have what we call traffic items. In newspapers, you carried it as a service to your customer. You didn't make money on
Right.
newspapers. You
Like
know,
a lost leader,
You didn't.
right?
You didn't really make money on lottery, and but
Pennies.
they were traffic
Traffic.
builders.
Yes.
And just like the supermarkets today, you also have to have a few lost leaders
Yes.
to also draw in traffic. And you know, that milk was down the back of the store. It wasn't there by accident.
Yeah.
You gotta walk through the whole store. Walk through the whole store.
Yeah. What are some of the fundamental things in business that
Well,
you
let me
learned
just
from?
finish off the layout of the
Okay.
store. So we had the cookie department across from the deli, and then after the cookies was our soda department. And it had Cott's ginger ale, and we used to have Schweppes ginger ale,
Get it
and
dry.
Tom Collins. That was one of
Yeah,
the
that's a big one.
all the mixers, all the
My
mixers,
parents always
all the
had
Lime
mixers,
Ricky,
Lime
Tom
Ricky,
Collins,
Lime
Dry.
Ricky,
Diamond,
Diamond, yeah,
sodas.
Waterbury, Connecticut.
Oh yeah.
tonic.
You know, that Diamond, they were quite a company. Matter of fact, they had come out with a you know, what Brute is,
Yeah, Brute.
they made a soda, no alcohol whatsoever, tasted like Brute.
Dry.
Right.
Love it.
And as a matter of fact, Peter had a bottle, and he gave it to the Ansonia bottling people up there on
Castle.
over on
Yeah,
Castle
Castle.
Beverages there.
yeah.
know
We
a
met
little
him down at
Southern
the
history.
Putters Yacht Club. They were down there for one reason or another. And Pete said, "I got a bottle I'm going to give you," and he did. We brought it over to him. But before we had Bizzuto's, we had the Valley Grocers serving the Valley
Yeah.
Grocers with wholesale stuff.
Yeah.
And the Valley Grocers opened up a brand new warehouse up on the flats up there where Daddy-O's is.
Yeah.
And for the grand opening,
It's the
Diamond
flats.
Soda brought in all the mixers for the party that they were having. And every bottle they brought, they opened it up when they brought it in the morning. Now, you know, you open up a bottle of soda, they go
They
flat.
go flat.
They did it on purpose because their soda did not go flat.
Really?
Wow.
And to
I didn't-
that was
Their
their way of
advertising.
advertising, is they opened up all the bottles and you'd have a drink and there was plenty of fizz in that drink.
Remember Pal?
PAL, oh yeah.
Orange.
I had PAL stickers all over my bicycle.
Did you
Them
ride your
is
bike
squirt.
to the store?
Hell was
Oh yeah, it was
so
only
tasty.
downhill going home.
Non-carbonated. And, well, the
Yeah, but that wasn't, for me, that wasn't the store we're talking about. That was our previous store before the flood down on High Street. And PAL was
But
already,
you sold, pal.
yeah, but not up on Wakelee Avenue.
The flood,
Yeah.
we're talking 1955, the flood?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah.
August of
Wiped out.
1955.
They wiped them out. And
August 19th, it's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
So on the counter side where we had the deli, then after the deli would come the lotto machine, and then we had our counter. Don had the counter there with the 2 cash registers, and when I started there was the old push button.
Cash
You had to
register.
push the button, and then I think one of them had a handle. Then one of them had a handle.
Well, they were
coming out.
handled before we went electric.
Yeah, they were the handle before the electric.
Because
And,
we were buying all the old supermarket cash registers
Right.
because we didn't feel we could afford to buy our own.
And then after the counter, he had another section, which was the candy counter, like all the bars of candy, and the same thing. That guy there, yeah, that guy there used to come at least once or twice a week, Alan, right from.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
forgot
What was
the
the
name of his
big
company.
candy sell?
Oh, we used to sell everything: Snickers, almond bar, almond joy, everything.
And bubble gum.
Bubble, yeah,
Bubble gum.
bazooka bubble. When we were kids, it was bazooka
Because
bubble
you get the
gum.
little comic in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And then I remember we used to sell the big strings of licorice. They were like 3 foot. Remember those big, like,
oh yeah.
And Cracker Jacks,
oh
because you
yeah,
got a
crack, yeah,
prize.
And the
Did
Liberty
you sell
strips, the
baseball
red,
cards?
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah,
baseball
yeah.
cards, all that,
all kinds of cards by then.
everything. And then behind the candy counter, right directly behind it, was our patent medicine department.
Oh,
Cough drops.
We had a drugstore next
drugstore.
door.
Yeah, he had the drugstore right there.
And I sold
Lair
patent-
Pharmacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we
Which is
used to
still
sell
there today.
patent medicine. So you had probably about at least a dozen or so different departments in his little store.
yeah.
And then after the patent medicine, he had his magazines, magazine departments, all magazines and
Gee.
Yeah, we sold film. We delivered
film. Yeah, that was
developed
developed film.
Oh, the Kodak.
We had the developing process.
Yeah, you
People
drop
bring
off the
them-
roll and
and
come back.
Mail it out.
People would come. The processor would pick them up, process them, bring them back.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take a week.
Yeah. The brown envelope. The brown, the manila
Yellow, yeah, well,
envelope.
that was for the Kodak, but
Yeah.
then they had the generic one. Working back to the deli though, let's go back to some of the cold cuts we used to sell down.
I mean, like the quiche,
Or the head cheese.
The head
Head
cheese.
cheese.
It's always
Head
about
cheese.
the head
both
cheese.
black and white.
But that quiche was like wasn't that like in a bubble or like
Yeah,
wrapped up?
yeah,
I never knew what was in it. I never opened it. I don't know what was in it.
That's a skin. That's a
Yeah, it was like-
intestine. Like a hot dog is.
Right.
It actually had a skin, and inside was.
And then we had liverwurst. That was another popular one.
Stanley stole the quiche.
Yeah.
Stanley?
Some people grew up on with
That's the
liverwurst.
Who stole the quiche?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Olive loaf, PMP.
P&P loaf,
Yeah.
olive loaf.
Remember the pimento loaf?
Our domestic ham, the boiled ham. That
The
was a big
crackus?
seller.
Was it the
We
crackus?
used to sell a lot of boiled ham. A lot of. And then
Yeah,
Land
you
of
always had a
Lakes.
domestic, and you had
The imported.
The
Yeah,
imported one
imported.
from Crockett.
Well, we used to sell a ton of
And
Land of Lakes.
Crockett used to come. He used to come in a can.
Yeah, it was a big.
Yes.
It was an actual ham.
Yes, because I worked for the Clarituses. Yes.
Yeah, we used to open up with
Yes,
the
I
key.
used to work in the deli
And,
for
and that was
Claritus. Yeah.
it was pear shaped because a ham is pear shaped.
Pear-shaped.
And
Yep.
it was really a ham. Today
Yes.
it's all
It's processed.
It's all pressed ham.
Yeah.
What we called pressed ham back then.
Yeah.
Today is they call boiled.
Boiled ham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they chop it all up and make it any shape you want.
Yeah.
They make
So
it round.
true.
They make it oblong.
Yeah. So
We used to
true.
sell-
A ham is an oblong.
No.
Right.
And it's like the square fish they sell at McDonald's.
Or fish on square. Then we used to sell. I remember when you used to take the domestic ham, and we used to doctor it up and used to cook it upstairs in the oven and make it into a Virginia ham.
Yeah.
He always talks about
We used to put
We would bake it.
put pineapple
Cloves.
slices,
You put cloves, yeah.
brown sugar,
Yeah.
and then we used to go upstairs and bake it, bring it back down, and sell it as Virginia baked ham
Well, it was
For-
more delicious.
for $1 more a
It was
pound.
the Ansonia baked ham.
Wakelee.
Yeah, Wakelee ham.
Hams are
It's so
usually
great.
hams first before they become a Virginia ham.
Virginia's
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to think. I think that covered about everything in the store. I think.
But what did you learn? What did you glean from that whole? When did you started at age
Well,
11?
one thing
How
that-
old were you when you left?
I started at 11. I left right after high school when I was 18. So I was there.
Because you were working at
seven-
Warehouse Foods also.
No, that
at
was
night?
that was afterwards.
Okay.
But I was going to school. I was in high school full time, and then I used to come to the store right after school. I used to come 1 o'clock, 1:30.
What were your hours?
If you weren't
Yeah.
if you weren't in sports, I'd hire you.
Yeah,
What were your hours?
like 1:30 to 9 o'clock every night.
No, I mean the store hours. What were the store
Oh, it
hours?
was
Yeah,
open
that's a
from
good
6 in
point.
the morning to 9 at night.
Wow.
So while you worked there, you learned to handle money.
Were you there the whole
Yes.
to
time?
handle people.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
You know,
That was
the
another
whole bit.
thing. He taught us right away how to count back money.
I
How to
know.
count back
Yeah.
change.
Change.
Because at the time, those cash registers didn't tell us how much money to give back.
No.
And that's another thing. Don always said, always leave the money on the counter before you
Yep.
finish the transaction. Because
Then
a lot
they
of
can't
time,
say.
a lot of time we say, oh, I gave you a 20.
Yep.
No, here it is. It's right here. It's a 10.
And then you got to cash out the whole register.
No, well,
No, they didn't Z out anything.
Right.
So
And
you
then
had 2 registers then?
Yeah.
Were they always busy, like during the day, during busy
Well,
time?
yeah. When,
Did
that's
you
why
have
had
other
the second
people
one,
or
so-
yourself? Just yourself at the register, or
Oh no!
Oh, no,
Like I
yeah.
said, if you worked for me, you did
everything?
you did everything.
Everything.
That's great.
And
Pat,
Soup to
probably
nuts.
by the time he was in high school, he was probably doing some of the ordering
yeah.
and yeah, small store, you get to do almost everything.
Don't forget, he had, when I was there, we had what, 6, 7, 8 people working there, right?
Yeah, we were
Can
that
I
That was my
ask?
next question.
Can
How
I
many
ask
people were there?
Don? What did you think of my husband when he was a young man? What was your forecast? Did you
Oh.
think he had a good work ethic for an 11-year-old, or was he unusual to you, or?
Because he came from Europe, he definitely had a whole different attitude
Right.
about, and he also, he was there, he wanted to learn.
He did.
He wasn't there to collect
to
a
work.
paycheck.
Right.
He was there to learn the business, to learn as much as he could while he was there.
You noticed that.
And yes, and if he didn't understand something, he would ask. Now, some of the kids I'd hire, after they worked 2 days, they knew everything. Customer come in the store and say, "Hey, you got any shoelaces?" Kid says, "Nope." I said, "How do you know that?" I said, "Did you ask me?"
Right.
Right.
"No, I didn't sell one. I haven't sold one yet." I said, "Well, the shoelaces are
They're
over
right
there."
there.
Yes. Yeah.
Not Pat. Pat saying, "Do we have that?" In other words, he thought he knew everything in the store, just like the other kid did. But if someone asked him,
And he didn't.
he'd then turn to me and say, "Do we?" Because he realized that the store was packed.
Don't let the customer
packed.
leave.
Well, don't let
Right.
the customer leave, and
Right.
then also sometime, depending on what it is, sometimes there's a substitute too.
Right.
But the inventory in that store, a lot of times there was things that weren't easy to find.
Right. Right.
So
I can understand that.
you work a short time, you didn't know the inventory of that store.
We want to know, as his family, did he ever call out sick?
I don't remember. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Pat, did you ever call out sick?
No, not
Probably
that I can
never.
remember,
Yeah.
no.
But like Don was saying,
if he did, he was sick.
I was really sick. But I remember, as Don was saying, that I wanted to learn, and I was intrigued by the business because, it's just he was working, 7 days a week, 15, 16 hours a day.
But did it remind you of the delis in your hometown in Italy? That like the local bodega where everybody went for everything.
Yeah.
Was it more familiar to you?
Yeah, but I mean, this was like the American version.
The
because
American
this was,
version, yeah.
like 10 times. Or don't forget, from Italy, we came from a small town of, small farming town of maybe 1,000 people in the whole town.
Right.
Going to Wakelee, Avenue, Ansonia, which the population was probably 15,000 or better.
Right.
Yeah.
Big city to you.
Yeah. I mean, but I was just amazed at the number one, the way Don ran the store. And I remember Don talking to, I don't know if you were telling me or somebody else, that when you first started working there, one time he sat down and figured out how much he was making an hour. I think you said you were making like $1.50 an hour. You know, when he first started out, because he was putting in all this time and, you know, 20-hour days, 18-hour days, but and then it, you know, after a time it started paying
It
off.
gets in your system. It
Yeah.
gets in you, and
It's
you
hard
just,
work.
you know, even though you're not making that much,
Right.
it's in
Well,
your
it was
in you
it was
to
his
do it.
business, you know. It was his
Yeah.
it was his name, you know, his reputation, like
Yeah.
you were saying before. You know, your name meant a lot, you know, and it still does. And that's what I try to teach my kids nowadays is
Having a local newspaper and being able to advertise in the evening
yes,
Yes.
was a big asset.
yeah, that
But
local.
follow through about your name because it's very important to us.
Yeah, so it's
Your
very
name means
important.
everything.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
important to me because I tell my kids all the time. At the end of the day, it's all based on your reputation. You know, when you say Klanko, you say Civitella, you want somebody to say yes, they're good people.
And
And
the poorest of the poor were proud of their
name.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Exactly.
Because all
And-
you have
and-
is your name and your
and-
good word.
and
Yeah.
If they borrowed something from you, they made sure that they
Yes.
returned
Paid
it,
it, yeah.
because their name was at stake.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was important for them to always
Their
have-
reputation.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of that missed today, and it's too bad because your name is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all you have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you know most people don't know us, and you know when people start inquiring about your name, and they'll say, oh yeah, they're from here, they're good people, you know, and the word gets around. But you know, like I said, Don put in a lot of hours, and then it finally, you know, I don't know how long
Yeah,
it
it's
took,
dark.
but he was a very successful businessman, and I think he was way ahead of his time. And like you said, the Evening Sentinel was a great asset to the business, because you were able to advertise there, and pretty much at that time everybody read that paper. I mean, that was the only
Everybody
means.
complained about it, but they
Everybody,
all
yeah, they all loved it. And then when it went away,
Yeah.
and when it disappeared, everybody was crying, you know, because they used to call it the Valley Rag. That was
Yeah.
one of the names. But everybody loved that paper, because you could find out just about everything, you know, that's going on in town.
We're
in the
over
Ansonia
an hour. My battery is dying, and I could replace it, or you can wrap it.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to wrap it up. I just
Yep.
wanted to have Don finish up and whatever he wanted to
It
add to
may
it.
end, and I'll let you know when that happens.
But also, Don also taught me a thing that always stuck in my mind is the saying, like, walk softly and carry a big stick.
Yes. Yeah, I
And
think
I
we
don't know
need
if
to
you-
clap for that.
And I don't know. I know what that. I don't know if you know what that means, but you were never a person to say, "I have this, I have that." But I know you had a big stick in your pocket because your pocket was full of
Full of candy.
you know.
Full of candy.
But I know you worked hard at it, and I admire that, because you never ever once said, you know, well, I own this or I own that, or
Never
I have-
bragged.
never,
Never.
ever. No, the whole time I've known him, never say anything.
Modesty.
Yeah,
Pat says that he worked for the rich guy. Well, now I have a almost son that's a very rich son. He's done very well with his life, and I'm proud of you, Pat.
Thank you,
Very
Don.
proud.
Thank you.
He credits you,
I-
Don. He
talk-
credits
I
you
talk
all
to
the
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.